So my text today is taken from Genesis 18, verses 9 through 14. But I'm going to only read one verse, verse 14. And I'll be reading from the English Standard Version. It says, "Is anything too hard for the Lord? At this appointed time, I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son." You may be seated. At first, I definitely have to say it took me a while. What am I going to say? What am I going to say? And then one day I was homesick, and I finally got my introduction. It was beautiful. So here I go. How long did it take you to decide a career? Think about it for a moment. You knew right away? If you were like me, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. Actually, I was going to be a nursery school teacher. Then I wanted to earn a nursery. I loved working with babies. But then I worked with youth and sport with the special needs children. So thanks to my parents, I went back to school and completed a degree in elementary education with a concentration in special needs. So here I am today in the career I love. Now, don't get me wrong, there are challenges, but there are also rewards. I always pray, Lord, is this the right profession for me? Then I got my answer. Yes, this is the right profession for you. You know, this happens when I've taught all week, or maybe for 2 weeks, and the child finally gets it. I'm like, yes, you finally got it. Thank you. Then some other times when I have to do running records in my profession, and I'm doing a running record on a child where you record their reading, and the child does something that I taught him last week, and I'm like, finally, you got it. So today, church, Sarah thought it was too late to have children, but she quickly found out that it's never, never too late. So let's examine this passage with the following 3 points. Point number 1, standing by. Point number 2, you're on standby. And point number 3, stand still. Point number 1 is standing by. In the beginning of this chapter, Abraham was at the door of his tent. Then he looked up and saw 3 men standing in front of him. He quickly was hospitable to them and gave them water to wash their feet and gave them something to eat. I'm going to ask the older mothers. It's not so much me, but older mothers, when someone comes to your house, what do you say? Say it again. A cup of tea or something. Exactly. Would you like a cup of tea? I have a piece of plain cake. Would you like that? We give them the best. In verse 9 and 10, it says, they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "She is in the tent." The Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent behind him. When this statement was made, Sarah was in her apartment of the tent, which is normally at the back. Right. Sarah wasn't allowed to be with the man, but God needed her close. Come on now. Why, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. She was close because God needed her to overhear what was being communicated with Abraham. Nowadays, when people are rude, when they want to be rude about people, they talk loud. They may say, "Look at that girl over there," just so you can hear what they're saying. But in Sarah's case, God wanted Sarah to overhear the promise that he was giving to her. So she had to be near. You know, sometimes we question God, whether or not God is talking to us. But in verse 9, God specifically asked Abraham, "Where is your wife Sarah?" This tells me that God had something special to say to Sarah. Now, mothers, how long does it take us to have a baby? 40 weeks to be exact. In verse 10, God was very specific in his timeline. He didn't say a year or two. He said this time next year. So that's why God needed Sarah to be standing by so she will know that she is on standby. Point 2, verse 11 and 12. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in their years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I am worn out and my Lord is ill, shall I have pleasure? In these verses, Sarah looked at the human possibilities of having children.
Right.
This version says that they were advanced in age. Mothers, we know after a certain age, which is normally 35, we say we're too old to have a child. Even though nowadays there are women having children into their 40s or later. Janet Jackson and Mariah Carey.
They can afford a baby.
There is an increased level of risk for certain complications during pregnancy, right, Dr. Woods? Once you find out you're pregnant after 35, there are certain tests
That's right.
you have to have to make sure the baby is growing correctly. Now, I've had 3 pregnancies, right? I remember just DJ's one. Can't remember the others. So with DJ's pregnancy, I can remember I had to go for an amniocentesis and then an alpha fetoprotein screening. Now, the amniocentesis I didn't like. First of all, I don't like needles. And when I saw the size needle, that was a problem. Then I can remember as clear as day, Dr. Woods. I had to have the amniocentesis, but DJ moved. So she had to pull the needle back out, make a move, and then put it back in. This procedure is used to obtain a small sample of amniotic fluid that surrounds the fetus to diagnose chromosomal disorders. And AFP also looks at chromosome abnormalities and Down syndrome. In our text, Sarah saying, I'm too old to have a child. In the Bible lesson I have taught to the children, it says that Sarah was about 90 years old. Now I'm going to go down to Granny House and down to Mother Sumner now. First of all, I need both of you to say how old you are. Then I have a question for you.
86. 88.
Now, at your age now, because remember Sarah was 90.
No. God forbid.
So, as you can see, Sarah was about their age, and they're like, no, I'm trying to have it so I can understand why Sarah was saying, I'm too old to have child. Therefore, Sarah was laughing, but God wanted her to be on standby for her blessing. By Sarah laughing to herself, she treated the message as something new. We know that saying, there is nothing new under the sun. I believe that this is what God was telling Sarah. Mothers, how many of us have been told something and we are still waiting? It's okay to be on standby because God has you standing by so you can stand still. Point 3, stand still. Verse 13 and 14. The Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child? Now that I am old, is there anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. God gave a message to Sarah, and it will be fulfilled. Mothers, you can also see that God gave Sarah a timeline to stand still. Sometimes we may feel that we need answers right away, but God is saying, stand still and be at peace. Exodus 18:23 says, if you do this, God will direct you, and you will be able to endure. And all these people also will go to their place in peace. God was telling Sarah, it's okay. I've got this, and you need to stand still.
Yes.
I was speaking to my husband about this, and he was laughing. I remember before DJ, I was pregnant, and I had a miscarriage. And so normally after you have a miscarriage, it's stressful. And I got pregnant with DJ, and I was all excited. But at the back of my mind, it was still that point of, am I going to carry him to term? Is something going to happen before I'm able to have him? And I was having a chat with God, and he said, Patrice, be still. I have you. And after that, it was all over. And here he is, Dion, DJ, come to mommy. Here is the promise. The promise. Here is my promise, our promise. Because first of all, I prayed for a boy. Prayed for a boy, because if it was another girl, I tell him we're not having any more. So here is our promise that was given to us. Love you. So mothers in church, let's remember that when God says something to us, we need to stand by and stand still. Be at peace with what God has given to you. Be blessed.
Amen. Well done.